Hello, my name is Ash, a counselor in training. This is my Relatable study podcast for individuals who need help studying for their NCE, CPCE, and other related counseling exams. I'm going to go through many questions from multiple resources and make the answers relatable to both you and me. So get your listening ears on and let's get studying. In Harry Harlow's experiment with baby monkeys, A wire mother was favored by most young monkeys over a terry cloth version. B, the baby monkey was more likely to cling to a terry cloth mother surrogate than a wire surrogate mother. C, female monkeys had a tendency to drink large quantities of alcohol. D, male monkeys had a tendency to drink large quantities of alcohol. The answer is B. In Harry Harlow's experiment with baby monkeys, the baby monkey was more likely to cling to a terry cloth mother surrogate than a wire surrogate mother. To my knowledge, Harry Harlow didn't experiment with monkeys drinking any quantities of alcohol, so you could take those two out. If I am wrong, let me know down in the comments. Baby monkeys favored the terry cloth version of a surrogate mother rather than the wire surrogate mother because the terry cloth provided comfort. Which of the following statements regarding obtaining informed consent is correct? A, participants are contractually bound until the research concludes. B, there will be no discomfort or risks involved. C, participants can withdraw consent at any time. D, participants will be adequately compensated. The answer is C, participants can withdraw consent at any time. The case that comes to mind in regards to this question is the Stanford prison experiment. It's a very famous case where students were able to take roles of sheriff and prisoner, and the conditions got so bad that the experiment had to quit after 5 or 6 days instead of the 2-week period. And the researcher who conducted the experiment was very reluctant about participants withdrawing consent or leaving the experiment. It is a very interesting case. There is a movie about it. It explains the experiment better than I can in this podcast, and I highly recommend it. It is very interesting to watch. Participants are not contractually bound to the research until the research concludes. There will always be discomforts and risks involved in any type of research. Depending on the study, participants can be compensated depending on the researcher and their funds. But the correct answer for which of the following statements regarding obtaining informed consent is correct is participants can withdraw consent at any time. That is the correct answer. What is the validity of lab research? Lab research has the highest internal validity value because the experiments that are taking place are more easily controlled in the terms of cause and effect relationships of variables that are applied under specific conditions. In addition, it also eliminates other explanations that can be attributed to changes in the results. On the other hand, lab research also has a low external validity because of generalization to other people, places, and time frames that are not so easy to accomplish. And generalization of any action can be repeated in other situations. In simple terms, it's like owning a kiln for ceramics. You're able to have a lot of control over the temperature, the clay, pressure, all of these things in a studio that is made for ceramics or pottery. Whereas if it was more community-based, there's a lower ability to control what's being put inside a kiln. But it can still be done. Freud postulates psychosexual stages A. Id, ego, and superego. B. Oral, anal, phylactic, latency, and genital. C. Ethos, thanos, regression, and superego. D. Manifest, latent, oral, and phylactic. The answer is oral, anal, phylactic, latency, and genital. That is what Freud is postulating with his psychosexual stages. A fun way to remember these stages in order would be an acronym such as Orphan, Annie, peels, large, grapes. Orphan is oral, Annie is anal, peel is phylactic, large is latency, and grapes are genital. I remember listening to a podcast and they gave an acronym for Freud's psychosexual stages, and the first two words I remember were Orphan Annie, but I could not remember the last three, so I kind of had to come up with my own. So Orphan Annie peels large grapes. Pretty sure that is what they said, but I can't be wrong, and it's just a fun way to remember Freud's psychosexual stages. If we can't have fun here, what's the point? The point is to learn, but we also need to have fun too. A counselor asks a client to imagine a miracle has occurred and you no longer have these problems. What technique is being employed? A. Solution-focused brief therapy. B. Dialectical behavioral therapy. C. Rational emotive behavior therapy. D. Cognitive behavioral therapy. The answer is A. Solution-focused brief therapy typically asks the miracle question because it helps the client think of many different solutions that could occur if a miracle has happened, and you're able to build on to that miracle and create a solution to a problem a client is having, and you can work on that plan in therapy, out of therapy, and help the client move from where they are stuck. And that is all 5 questions. Thank you for listening. Keep calm and study on.